Hello, dreamers. I'm the Storytime for Sleep. Please subscribe for more, and I know you're here to unwind. So, before you drift into sleep, take a deep breath, like this. Inhales slowly, and let go of the day. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It helps the stories keep coming. Now, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you? All right, get cozy, turn off the lights, and let this tale carry you into the dark. The first call. It began at 11:42 p.m. I remember the time clearly. I just paused the latest episode of that murder show everyone's obsessed with. The popcorn bowl was warm in my lap. I was debating sleep or one more episode. Then my phone rang. A sharp, jarring tone that didn't belong in my quiet apartment. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? My voice sounded thin, even to me. Silence, just breathing, slow and raspy, like someone trying not to be heard. Hello? I said again, this time sharper. The call cut off. I stared at the screen, then tossed the phone onto the couch. Probably just a drunk dial. Or a telemarketer. 15 minutes passed. The phone rang again. Same number. This time, I let it go to voicemail. One new message. I pressed play. That breathing again. Closer now, wet, deliberate. Then, a whisper. I can see you. I froze. Deleted the message. Blocked the number. My hands shook. Just a prank, I told myself. Some loser with an app. No big deal. I stood and went to boil water for tea, chamomile, safe, comforting. But while I waited, I found myself drawn to the window, peering through the glass at the still street below. Nothing, just parked cars, empty sidewalks, normal. Back on the couch, I sipped my tea and tried to focus. My show played. I didn't hear a word. Then my phone buzzed, a text, unknown number. Nice pajamas? I looked down, faded Star Wars pants, oversized tee. My heart dropped into my stomach. I jumped to my feet, rushed to the windows, yanked the curtain shut, every last one. Then I called 911. The dispatcher was calm, too calm. I'm getting messages, I whispered. They say they can see me. Are you in immediate danger? I don't see anyone, but... Ma'am, unless there's a visible threat. They're using different numbers, I said. They won't stop. Keep your doors and windows locked, the dispatcher replied. If you see anyone or feel unsafe, call again immediately. Click. Useless. My phone buzzed once more. Another number. Despite every warning in my brain, I answered. A whisper, low and gleeful. Stop closing the curtains. I liked watching you. You said yes the second night. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the floorboards, every gust of wind outside felt like footsteps or breathing. I sat on my couch with the lights on, clutching a kitchen knife I'd never actually used before. It felt ridiculous until my phone buzzed again. 3:07 a.m. No caller ID. I didn't answer. It stopped after one ring. That somehow felt worse. I stayed home from work the next day, called off sick. Every time I glanced out the window, I half expected to see someone standing there, just watching. But there was nothing, just the ordinary quiet of my neighborhood, pretending everything was fine. That evening, I set up my laptop near the living room window, turned the webcam on, and pointed it outside. If someone was watching me, maybe I could watch them back. I clicked record, let it run. Hours passed. Silence. No calls. Midnight. 1 a.m. Just as I started to relax. Buzz, buzz. A text. No words. Just a photo. It was a still frame. From my webcam. The grainy shot showed the living room. Me asleep on the couch, the knife slipping from my hand. Lights off. Curtains open. I bolted upright. That photo wasn't possible. I hadn't fallen asleep. I hadn't turned off the lights. I checked the timestamp on the photo. 11:58 p.m. My hand shook as I grabbed my laptop. The recording was still going. I dragged the timeline back to 11:58 and hit play. The room was empty. Then, movement. Someone slid into frame. A shape just outside the window, a pale face distorted by the glass, watching, smiling. They stood there for 10 minutes, unmoving, like they were posing, and then they were gone. The footage. I didn't know what to do. I played the recording again, frame by frame. The figure outside, tall, face obscured by shadow, head tilted just slightly, like it was studying me, admiring me. My skin crawled. I saved the footage to a USB, then backed it up to the cloud, then emailed it to myself. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I couldn't risk it disappearing. I called the police again. This time, I had evidence. They promised to send someone in the morning. "We'll have a unit do a patrol around your building," the officer said. "Maybe even check your security system." I didn't have a security system, so I made one. I dragged an old baby monitor out of the closet. Left over from my sister visited with her kid. I set it up by the front door, taped my webcam to the back window. My laptop streamed video feeds side by side, one eye to the front, one to the rear. I sat on the couch and waited. The night dragged on. No calls, no texts, nothing. Until 2:46 a.m. The baby monitor crackled to life. Static. Then a whisper. Not through the phone this time. Through the monitor. "You're awake." I nearly dropped the laptop. The feed went black. I jumped up and ran to the front door, locked, bolted, then to the back, still shut. Then my phone buzzed. A live image. Me, standing in the hallway, from above, like it was taken from the ceiling. I spun around, heart slamming against my ribs. Nothing, but I heard it. Soft click. Above me, the attic access panel slightly ajar. I hadn't even realized I had an attic. Last time, Sarah was told to look out the window, and she did, and someone was looking back. But the thing about fear is it doesn't stay in one place. It follows you. It waits. Let's begin. I didn't sleep. Not really. I drifted off sometime after dawn, still curled up in the bathtub, the knife clutched tight in one hand, my blanket damp with sweat. When I finally emerged, blinking against the morning sun, the world looked normal. But it didn't feel that way. I made coffee with trembling hands, jumping at every pop of the machine. I kept all the curtains closed, every light on. But I couldn't stay here, not after last night, not after that face. So I packed a bag, just a few things, essentials, clothes, phone, laptop, charger. I texted my friend Jamie, "Can I crash at your place for a few days?" "Please, no questions." She replied right away, "Of course. Come now." I felt a rush of relief. Just a few days away, I thought, somewhere safe, somewhere with someone else. I double-checked the locks, then again. Then I left. The city felt off. Every face on the street looked like it could be them. Every shadow felt a little too still. I walked fast, glancing over my shoulder, clutching my bag like a lifeline. But no one followed. No more calls. No more messages. Just silence. By the time I got to Jamie's building, I'd almost convinced myself I'd overreacted, that maybe the police were right. Maybe it had just been a fluke, a sick prank. Nothing more. She greeted me at the door, hugged me without asking questions, and handed me tea. "You're safe here," she said. I wanted to believe her. That night we made dinner, watched old movies. She tried to make me laugh, and I appreciated it. For a while, I almost felt like myself again. I was just starting to doze off on her couch when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My breath caught. I stared at it. It buzzed again. 3 words. "Found you, Sarah?" I dropped the phone. Jamie picked it up, frowning. "Who's texting you?" I shook my head, tears rising. I blocked them. I changed my number. We called the police. Again, they said they'd file a report. Not much else they could do. That night, I slept in Jamie's guest room. I locked the door. I shoved a chair under the knob, and still I woke up at 3:17 a.m. My phone was vibrating on the nightstand. Blocked number. I answered before I could stop myself. Ragged breathing. Then, "Why'd you leave, Sarah?" I hung up and turned the phone off completely. But it didn't matter, because that was when I noticed something else. The closet door. It was open, just a crack. I know I closed it. I got up, step by shaking step, and reached for the doorknob. I yanked it open. Nothing. Just empty hangers swaying slightly. I turned to go back to bed and saw the word scratched into the mirror above the dresser. One word. Stay. I backed away, and that's when I noticed it wasn't scratched from the outside. It was written on the inside of the glass. Voice softens again, colder now, slower. Sometimes you run from the dark. Sometimes you find shelter. But sometimes the dark follows you inside, and it whispers your name from the mirror just to let you know you were never alone. Not really. When fear gets too big, your mind cracks. And the world, it cracks with it. Sarah just learned that the person she trusted most wasn't a person at all, and now she's running. But from what? And where can you run when it's already inside you? I bolted for the front door, didn't grab my bag, didn't grab my phone, just ran. Jamie, that thing, didn't follow, not right away. She just stood there, smiling. "Where are you going, Sarah?" she called, her voice shifting, doubling. A man's voice underneath, something else. I yanked the door open and stopped cold. It wasn't the hallway, it was my living room, from my apartment, the one I left 2 days ago. Same couch, same flickering lamp, same bowl of stale popcorn on the coffee table. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I turned around, but Jamie's apartment was gone, behind me, my bedroom, my mirror, the one with the word. Only now it read, "Stop running." I stumbled backward, shaking. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. I closed my eyes, counted to 10, breathed. When I opened them, I was standing in my childhood bedroom, posters still on the wall, teddy bear on the bed. A soft breeze came through the open window. For a second, I almost believed it. Almost. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. I didn't want to answer, but I did. A whisper. "Remember this place, Sarah?" I dropped the phone. "No," I said. "This isn't happening. This isn't real." The closet door creaked open. Again, always the closet. A small version of me stepped out, 7 years old, wearing a red nightgown, the one I wore the night my father died. She looked up at me with hollow eyes and whispered, "You let him die?" The room dissolved into black static, and when it cleared, I was in a hospital. Machines beeped, monitors flickered. I looked down. I was strapped to a bed, needles in my arms. A woman leaned over me in scrubs, except her face, her eyes, were wrong. Too wide, too dark, too empty. "Sarah," she said, sweet as poison, "you've been very sick." She smiled. "You never left." Voice leans in now. like a secret is being shared. What if none of this ever happened? What if the phone call, the face in the window, the figure on the sidewalk were just pieces of something broken? Something buried? Sarah screams, struggles, but the world around her doesn't move. Only the lights flicker, only the whispers continue. You can't leave, Sarah. This is home. We've been waiting for you. The machines start to scream. The lights strobe faster. Shadows gather in the corners of the room, growing longer, thicker, reaching. The woman's face splits in half with a grin that stretches too far, revealing row after row of jagged, glistening teeth. And Sarah? She does the only thing she can. She screams. Voice fades to a whisper, but no one hears, because in this place there's no signal, no escape, only echoes. And now you're here with her, listening, watching, waiting, just like the rest of us. Sometimes terror comes quietly, and sometimes it arrives with the sound of rain battering against the windshield. Sarah thought she was safe. She thought she had made it through the night. But something wasn't done with her yet. I had barely started to breathe again when my phone buzzed in my hand. "Good morning, Sarah. Did you miss me? Don't worry, I'll see you again soon. Sweet dreams." I dropped the phone onto the couch like it was a live wire. My heart was hammering in my chest, choking me with every beat. There was no way this was happening. I had locked everything. The police had checked everything. And yet I looked around. The living room, the hallway, the kitchen, all empty. But something about the air was off. It felt wrong. I turned my gaze to the TV. The Blu-ray player was on. My show, looping. Not the show I'd been watching last night. My life. I didn't remember pressing play. I didn't remember recording it. But there it was. Each moment, each breath, each second of silence played back to me. How long had they been watching? What else had they seen? Suddenly, a creak echoed from within the walls. I froze. I had always dismissed the old house noises as the usual groans and moans of an aging building, but not now. Now, I knew. Someone was inside. My phone buzzed again. "I'm still here, Sarah. I told you I'd be back." I barely had the strength to look at the message. And just like that, the nightmare reached out to me. Again. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every sound seemed amplified. My own breath, the hum of the refrigerator, the wind whispering through the cracks in the walls. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second dragging like a heavy footstep in a dark hallway. As the night bled into early morning, I almost allowed myself to believe it was just my mind playing tricks. Maybe it was the stress, the lack of sleep, the paranoia. Maybe the police were right when they said it was just a series of strange coincidences. Maybe I wasn't really being watched. But then the next message came, and that's when I knew I wasn't alone. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I left the house, not knowing where to go. Anywhere was better than here. Anywhere was safer than waiting for something that might be watching from the shadows. I didn't think about it, didn't hesitate. I just grabbed my car keys and left. The roads were slick from the rain, winding and narrow, the headlights barely cutting through the downpour. The further I drove, the heavier the rain seemed to get. The droplets slammed against my windshield, and the wipers fought to keep up, as though they too were struggling to escape the growing pressure. I was already exhausted, emotionally, physically, spiritually. The road stretched on for miles with no sign of anything familiar, no towns, no houses, just trees and the constant thrum of rain. That's when I saw him, a figure, alone, standing at the edge of the road, drenched through to the bone, thumb stretched out toward the sky. I almost passed by. I should have. But something, a whisper deep inside, told me to slow down, to stop. I cursed myself as I hit the brakes. The wipers struggled to clear the rain enough to see him more clearly. But there was no mistaking it. He was a man, pale, gaunt, drenched, and his eyes empty, as if they had already seen too much. I hesitated, but before I could think better of it, he was jogging up to the passenger side, his soaked clothes clinging to his thin frame. I unlocked the door before I even realized I had made the decision. "Thanks, mate," he said, voice rough, but with a strange calm to it. I nodded weakly, not sure if I was doing the right thing, but too exhausted to care. He slid into the car, bringing with him the scent of wet clothes and something else, something metallic, something wrong. He didn't sit completely right. His body was too still, too stiff, like he was trying to fit inside the car but didn't belong. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but he didn't answer. His eyes, those hollow eyes, moved, flicking over the dashboard, the rearview mirror, the empty seat next to me. His lips curled into a grin, slow and deliberate. "I've been waiting for you, Sarah." My blood turned to ice. How did he know my name? How did he know I had stopped? Before I could react, the car lurched. The air grew cold, colder than it had ever been. I grabbed the wheel, gripping it so tight my knuckles turned white. He's not real. He's just some hitchhiker. But the thing in the passenger seat was already smiling wider. "Don't worry," he said, voice almost a whisper. "I'm not the one you need to worry about." Voice now thick with a slow burn of terror. Sarah has made a grave mistake, a choice that will lead her deeper into the heart of the thing that's been following her. This man, or whatever he is only the beginning. And just like before, the rules have changed. There's no turning back. Reality bends when you stop looking. But Sarah wasn't looking. She wasn't even trying to escape anymore. She had no idea where she was. And worse, she didn't know where she'd been. The moment the man, if he could even be called that, spoke, something inside Sarah cracked. She wasn't in control anymore. She didn't even know if she ever had been. She glanced at him again. His grin stretched impossibly wide. "You've been running from the wrong thing, Sarah." Her foot pressed harder on the accelerator, her fingers gripping the wheel so tightly the edges of her palms went numb. The headlights cut through the storm, but they didn't help. Nothing did. The road stretched on, endless and dark. There was no destination, no sign of life, just endless black. "I told you," he whispered. His voice no longer sounded human. "You can't outrun it." It was like a switch flipped. The rain didn't hit the car anymore. The windshield went clear. The storm stopped. The air froze. Her fingers still gripped the wheel, but now the car wasn't moving. The engine was still running, but she wasn't going anywhere. She slammed her foot on the gas. Nothing. Her heartbeat quickened, and she slammed the pedal again. The man beside her didn't move. He was just there. "You've been in it all along, Sarah," he continued, his eyes locked onto hers with that empty, void gaze. "It was never about running. It was about understanding." And then the world began to distort. It was subtle at first, just a slight shift, a bend in the corner of her eye, like the car was somehow tilting sideways without moving. The landscape outside the car window didn't match the road she'd been driving on a second ago. Where had the trees gone? Where was the rain? Where was anything? She turned to the man. He was still there, but now his features weren't quite the same. His face slid like it was a mask pulled too tight. His eyes were wider now, unnaturally so, his mouth stretching in that horrible grin. "I'm not the problem, Sarah. You are." Her breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" "You brought it here." The car shook, rattled, like it was fighting to stay on the road, and she could feel the earth beneath her shift. The tires squealed against nothing. The man, no, whatever he was, leaned closer, his cold breath brushing against her ear. "You've been pulling it closer every time you thought you were alone," he hissed. The air thickened, suffocating. A pressure built around her chest, squeezing until she couldn't breathe. Her vision blurred, and for a moment she thought she might pass out. And then it snapped. The world tore apart. The car, her car, was gone. She was floating in darkness now. There was no ground beneath her, no sky above, no rain, no wind, no road, just the empty void. The only thing that existed was him, the figure, and Sarah, alone. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice weak, tremulous. "What is this?" "This is what you made." And then, for the first time since she'd met him, he spoke clearly. "I'm the thing you've been running from, Sarah." Voice soft, almost a lull, eerie calm. She thought she was trapped. She thought it was over. But Sarah hadn't realized yet. She was already in it. The world hadn't changed. It had only folded in on itself. The space around her twisted and cracked. At first, it was just a flicker, an image in the distance, like something rising from the blackness. Then it grew closer, looming larger with every second. It was her apartment. But it was wrong. The walls seemed to shimmer like water. The furniture twisted into shapes that defied sense, the edges blurring and stretching until they became unrecognizable. There was a sound, low, resonant, almost like a hum, but it felt like it was coming from inside her own mind. "Home," the man said, his voice now everywhere, nowhere, stretching into all corners of the void. "This is where it all began, and this is where it ends." Sarah spun around in desperation, her heart racing. "I can't be here. This isn't real." He laughed. "You're not here, Sarah, not anywhere you think you are." A sound pierced the void like the ripping of fabric, loud and jarring. And then the apartment door, the one that had locked her in countless times before, the one she had run from so many nights ago. It opened, and something stepped inside. Voice grows dark, insistent. It's not over. Sarah's about to learn what's behind that door, what has been waiting for her. The thing she's been chasing, running from, and questioning for so long isn't something, it's someone. And once you cross that line, there's no coming back. Sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't what you see. It's what you don't see. Sarah was standing on the precipice, staring into an abyss that had swallowed her whole. And now it was about to spit her back out. The door creaked open. It wasn't supposed to. She hadn't opened it, not in this place. But there it was, wide open, as if it had always been waiting for her. It wasn't her apartment anymore, not really, but it looked like it. The couch, the TV, the faint smell of chamomile tea still lingering in the air, the faintest hum of a refrigerator running in the distance. But there was something wrong. The walls, they were closing in like they were breathing, expanding and contracting in slow, deliberate motions. The corners of the room warped, becoming jagged, the edges of reality tearing at the seams. A flicker of movement. Something, or someone, stepped through the door. It was a figure, tall, dressed in black, its features obscured by shadow. But then Sarah's breath caught. She knew that shape. Number, it couldn't be. The figure's silhouette sharpened, revealing a face familiar yet wrong. It was her, but it wasn't. The reflection of herself stood there, grinning in a way that twisted the very essence of her. Eyes blackened like pools of endless depth, its mouth stretched too wide, the smile like a cut in the flesh. The air around it grew heavy, as though the weight of the world was gathering in that one singular spot. "Don't be afraid, Sarah," it said. Its voice was hers. No, it sounded like hers, but with an edge that made it feel foreign, alien. "You're just one more version. There are so many of us. So many." The figure reached out, and Sarah's blood froze. She stumbled backward, heart pounding, but it was everywhere. The air, the walls, the very ground beneath her feet. That smile, those eyes, were closing in on her from every direction. "Why?" Sarah gasped, her voice trembling with terror. "What do you want from me?" The reflection's grin deepened, spreading like a wound. "What do I want, Sarah?" it echoed, its voice mocking her, twisting her own words into something dark. "I want everything. I want the pieces you've hidden, the ones you've buried thinking they wouldn't matter. You're me, Sarah, and I'm you. We are one, and we always have been." It took a step forward. The air around Sarah thickened. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Her mind was a fog, but she forced herself to focus, to think. She wanted to scream, to fight, but her body felt heavy, like it was sinking into the floor. The walls pressed in, and the figure, the reflection, was everywhere now, behind her, beside her, taunting her from all angles. "I'm not you," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You're not me." The reflection smiled again, the edges of its lips splitting wider, as if enjoying her denial. "Oh, but you are, Sarah. You always have been. You just didn't want to admit it." Voice dark, growing more sinister. It was closing in now, and there was no escape. But Sarah didn't know the worst part yet. The worst part wasn't the reflection. It wasn't the voice. It wasn't even the twisted grin of someone who knew her better than she knew herself. The worst part? It was the thing that had been waiting outside the door. There was a sound, a scratching, a scraping, from inside the walls, the sound of something coming closer. Sarah whipped around, her heart leaping into her throat. Behind her, the dark shifting corner of the room stretched further into the shadows, and from that corner came a low, guttural growl. It was too deep, too animalistic to be anything human. She tried to move, to run, but her legs wouldn't respond. The reflection's eyes, blacker than night, held her in place. "I told you," it whispered, the voice now echoing from the very walls. "You've always been here. This is where you belong." Her chest tightened and her breath became shallow. "It's not real. It's not real. It's not real." But the growling, it was real, and it was closer now. The figure behind her began to dissolve, its form melting like liquid into the walls. The shadow stretched and twisted, becoming something other. The thing in the corner wasn't a reflection. It was something that had been feeding off Sarah's fear. It had always been there, just waiting for her to notice. It was watching her, and now it was coming. Voice drops to a whisper filled with dread. Sarah couldn't scream, because the thing in the corner, it wasn't interested in her screams. It was interested in her. And there was no escape from the darkness now. The room went cold. The door slammed shut behind her, locking her inside. And when the last shred of light finally flickered out, all that was left was the sound of scraping claws. There's no return from the place Sarah has found herself. Once you cross the threshold, once the door closes behind you, there is no way back. Not for Sarah, not for anyone. If you'd like, I can craft the final chapter where Sarah has to confront her own identity or the thing she's become, or we can explore the mystery of the entity's origins. Let me know what direction you'd like to go in. There's something darker than fear, something beyond it. It's the moment when you realize you don't escape. You never did. For Sarah, that moment came in the final flicker of light. Sarah couldn't move. Her limbs felt paralyzed. The air around her thickened like a weight pressing down on her chest. The thing in the corner, it wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was something more, something alive. And it was hungry. It was always hungry. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She couldn't breathe. There was only the silence and the scraping. It wasn't just in the corner anymore. It was everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, the floor, all of them seemed to pulse with the presence of something that had been waiting for her, watching. The very foundation of the apartment groaned like it was on the verge of collapsing under its own weight. And the door was locked. The reflection was gone, but she could still hear it. The scratching, the growling, but now it was closer, closer than ever. Sarah. The whisper came from inside her own mind. She didn't need to look. She knew. The thing was right behind her. And then the voice, her voice, but so much colder. It sent chills down her spine, tightening every muscle. You were never meant to leave, Sarah. The reflection had become the thing. It had always been her, and she had always been it. She was nothing more than a piece of the puzzle, one fragment of a whole that had been shattered. That had been broken long before she'd even realized it. I tried to warn you, it continued, the words dripping with mock sympathy. But you couldn't hear me. You wouldn't. You couldn't stand the truth. Sarah's stomach turned as the darkness grew thicker around her. The shadows reached out, curling around her, twisting her body, pulling her down. It was like being suffocated by the very air she breathed, and then she saw it. The reflection again, standing before her, its black eyes gleaming with an unnatural hunger. No. She tried to speak, but her voice was gone. She couldn't even scream. This was the truth she had been running from. This was her destiny. The thing before her was her, and she was it. It stepped closer, its face morphing into something more monstrous. It was as though her own reflection had devoured the last vestiges of humanity within her, leaving only emptiness behind. It's over now, Sarah, the thing whispered, so close she could feel its cold breath against her skin. This is who you are. This is who you've always been. It reached out, its hand, her hand, touching Sarah's cheek, cold and unnervingly familiar. And with that touch, Sarah knew. She hadn't been running from some random stalker. She hadn't been fleeing a person. She had been fleeing herself. The thing grinned. Her grin, it was wide, jagged, as though it was tearing her apart from the inside. You wanted to escape, but we never can. There's only one truth. The world began to crumble around her. The walls of her apartment split open, revealing endless nothingness beyond. The sound of her own heartbeat filled her ears as the thing, she, pulled her into the abyss. And then silence, voice low, grave. And then Sarah was gone. The end. Thank you, dear listeners. Follow me. Subscribe, like, share,